Hey everybody, welcome back to the Sales on Demand show. Of course, I'm Adam. I'm the host and the guest. This is going to be episode 95, and we're going to continue talking about hiring a virtual assistant, which is really something I've had to face head on this week. It's going to be good. It's a really important part of expanding your business, hiring a virtual assistant. So, of course, I'm actually sitting here in my military uniform right now because we were given the warning that some of us might be going to renew our identification cards, and I wanted to be ready to go, so I put it on. It doesn't look like I'm going to be going to do that, so I'm not upset about it. That's kind of how the Army works, is you just sit around and wait and see if something happens, and then when it does happen, you have to be ready to roll right away. So actually just really hoping to get back to in-person training really soon. I miss it. I miss it a lot. Although it does take up more time, and time is precious. So we'll definitely be talking about that in this episode. So of course we talk about what is selling. Well, I've got some awesome news, which, well, I don't know if it's awesome for you as a listener, but for me, it was the culmination of a test that I was performing, and I wasn't sure if it was going to work. So, of course, episode 93, I talked about printing your own products at home and shipping them to Amazon, or doing your own print on demand at home. And one of the things that I was really hoping to do is to start selling on Amazon Canada's FBA. And so I sent 24 mugs into Amazon Canada. It was my very first shipment ever, and it took a while for them to get checked in, and finally they got checked in, and they just kind of sat there. And I put a little bit of Amazon pay-per-click advertising on it, and I just thought, okay, well, let's see if this works or not. I was kind of targeting things that I hadn't actually sold on any other platform, and I thought, well, whatever, if I end up just wasting my money, it's not the end of the world. I knew there was going to be some risk to it, but I just was so excited about the idea. So, of course, it did take a while, but some of those products are selling. And I have 6 units of something, and 3 of them I've sold. Now, that's not really that spectacular. 3 sales is really not super exciting, but it's a brand new platform that I'd never been selling on, not in a serious way. I'd made a few sales on Amazon Canada just because all of my US listings were migrated to Canada. So every once in a while somebody would buy something from me, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm shipping this to Canada. But now I'm actually selling with Amazon FBA Canada. So I think this is something that I could scale up. And I'm looking forward to seeing how good this can get, because there's very little competition with Amazon Canada. And living in Canada, I have a distinct advantage over anybody, of course, living anywhere else. So that was kind of a cool thing, and I thought I would try it out. And of course, it worked, so I'm pretty excited about that. Now, of course, Valentine's Day is coming up. Anybody who wants their product by on time for Valentine's Day, they're going to have to order it probably in the next 48 hours, or it's not going to make it there in time. But people are still ordering, and of course, you can do the same thing that I recommended with Christmas, is put on a 10% sale and give people the option of having a gift card, a printable gift card, so that if the product doesn't arrive in time, they still have something to give to their special someone. So that is something that I will be doing as well. And I was actually just reminiscing about what I was doing a year ago. A year ago, I was working full time, and we had heard about COVID, and it was just this thing that was happening somewhere else. And I was actually staying in a hotel in Jasper, which is a really, really beautiful place in Alberta. And I was at a work conference, and I was fulfilling some of my the Etsy orders that I was getting for Valentine's Day. I was fulfilling them in the hotel room, so I was shipping out product while I was sitting in a hotel getting paid to be at this conference. And now I'm sitting here in my office, not working for that company anymore, not working for that employer anymore. And life has changed so much for me. So it's kind of just really interesting to reminisce about that. And of course, COVID really changed a lot over that period of time as well. So that's kind of I don't know, just so much has happened over the last year that it's almost impossible to really wrap your mind around it. But I imagine we're all going to be trying to wrap our minds around this period of time for a long time to come. So one more exciting announcement is I do have an upcoming interview with Travis Ross, who is now a podcaster in his own right. He has started a podcast called the POD Cast, which is all about print on demand, except he does things differently than I do. And so I'm actually going to be interviewing him, and he's going to be interviewing me, and we're going to trade tips and secrets and hints and all that kind of thing, and we're going to just do a crossover episode, so I'm kind of excited about that. That'll be the next episode coming out next week, and I'm going to, of course, link to his podcast. I was listening to it just before I started recording this episode here, and he was talking about selling on Walmart, which is something that I knew about, but I wasn't quite sure how that was going to, how it would work. So I'm hoping to ask him a few questions about that and see if it's a viable option for, new sellers or intermediate sellers. Get some more information about that. So of course, you don't want to miss that. And of course, I'm going to link to his actual podcast in the show notes of this episode here, because you should never I appreciate that I have a lot of listeners, but I don't know everything there is to know about print on demand. And if you listen to multiple sources, you might build yourself a really viable business with all of the information. So of course, I'm going to be listening to his podcast as well. And he's actually pretty interesting. He is a co-host as well, so that's something I don't have. He's a fair bit further ahead than I am in his business. He's built a team, and I'm very, very interested to hear about how he's done that and what he's doing right now. So, of course, last week we were talking about hiring a virtual assistant and why you should hire a virtual assistant. And I had just hired my own, not the first, but the second virtual assistant that I've ever had working for me, except now this fellow is working for me part-time on a permanent basis. And he's done fantastic so far. We've almost gotten through the entire first week of the job, and he's done fantastic. So basically this is kind of an intermediate thing that I'm doing here. So I'm going to be talking about beginner, intermediate, and advanced techniques for hiring a virtual assistant, and kind of how you should get started, how to go about hiring them, the kind of questions you should ask, and just where you should begin in the whole process here. So I'm at the intermediate stage for my business, and of course you'll hear about that when I talk about it. But it's going really well so far. I'm very, very happy that I've done it, and I'm going to be scaling this up. Having a virtual assistant has really taken a lot of the bandwidth, like the mental energy that I used to use to think about things. I can just hand it over. And all I got to do is just move some files into a folder, and then things get done. I wake up the next day, maybe he has a question or two, and I just answer the question. And then I put more work in there, and it gets done, and it's amazing. I love it. So, for beginners, if you've never done this before, we talked about why you should do this. And even if you're just basically a brand new beginner, hiring a virtual assistant can be something that will take your business to the next level. If you've made a few sales, this is something that you should consider. If you haven't made any sales and you're still working on just getting your Amazon account open or your Etsy account open, you haven't done any of that, you haven't uploaded it, or you haven't made any designs, obviously, having a virtual assistant probably won't help you very much. You could potentially hire someone to make designs for you, but unless this person has prior experience in making designs, in which case they're probably going to cost more money than you should pay for them. If they don't have any experience, then you're going to spend a lot of time training them, and if you don't know what to do yourself, you really can't train someone to do it for you. So it's not something that I would recommend for a just fresh off the, I hate to say off the boat, but if you just brand new minted seller, you just open your account, work on developing your own workflow, get some of your own designs out there, work on becoming at least a competent beginner before you hire somebody to do stuff for you. But, you can get past that in a couple of weeks if you're fast, maybe a couple of months if it takes you a little bit longer. So the learning curve is pretty steep, but it's also very fast. There's really not much to this business. Once you get your stores open and you start to kind of figure out what a design looks like, if you have no tech experience and you're like, what's a PNG? What's a file? How come those designs are transparent? If you don't know any of that, then obviously you're still fresh and you should start learning. The best way to learn, of course, is by joining my training. And my training is available at www.salesondemandshow.com/AZ. And I can teach you all of the basics and all of the advanced techniques as well. But if you're a fresh beginner, you've never done anything, you can join my training. And that's available at salesondemandshow.com/AZ. So what's the very first task that you should get a virtual assistant to do? Well, this is what I tell everybody. And this is very easy to do this if you're using a platform like GearBubble. You can easily hire someone to do this. You can also do this with Printful if you're using Printful. You can do this with any supplier that has a platform that you can upload designs and that they stay there. If you're doing customization, you can also hire somebody to create the mockups that you need for customization. But now you're starting to get into more advanced or intermediate techniques, and it's really just best when you're getting started to stay with simple things that you can quickly learn and do, and they're not very complicated to do. So I recommend hiring someone to upload your designs to gearbubble.com. And you can also have them, once they've loaded those designs onto GearBubble, they can move those designs from GearBubble to a platform. If you have the integration with GearBubble, you can just have them press the upload button. So that's what I do. I just have them, upload the designs to GearBubble and then press upload to send them to Etsy and Amazon. That way it cuts everything except for the listing on Etsy out of my task flow. So the only thing I have to do is once those are on Etsy, I have to go and publish them. And there's a couple of little buttons that I got to press. And, I thought about giving the VA access to my Etsy account, but seeing as how he's in the Philippines, it's not a very smart thing to do. You should never give somebody access to your Etsy account unless they are basically living in your house. Because Etsy logs, the location of every login. So if they see that you're logging in from the Philippines or Malaysia and North America, they're probably going to suspend your account. And that's not good. It kind of defeats the purpose of having an account in the first place if they take it away from you. Now, there's a few little workarounds. You could have your virtual assistant work with your designs or your products with GetVela, which is it's a free program that connects to your Etsy store and allows you to make edits. So that's an option. The only thing you can't do is publish from GetVela, which is kind of the whole point of making those changes anyway. So I basically just decided to do them for myself and skip the whole GetVela thing. So this is what I was doing a couple of years ago. Actually, 3 years ago, I hired somebody, and I went to Upwork.com, and I basically posted a job that said something to this effect. I'm looking for someone who has access to the internet and is willing to upload simple graphical images. I will provide them for you. You copy and paste some information, click some buttons, and you just have to be able to do that over and over again. I'll pay you 20 cents per action on that, and I had loads of people who basically applied for the job. So I ended up hiring a lady, and she did excellent work. Her English wasn't flawless, but it was pretty good. It was about, I'd say 90%, and 90% is good enough. So she got off to like a little bit of a rough start. She didn't quite get the gist of it right off the bat, but who cares? It is really easy to train someone to do this, and I've actually created a training video that I'm going to be putting into my training. You can share this video with your virtual assistant to show them what to do. So instead of you having to create a training video where you're screen capturing your computer screen and showing your virtual assistant, hey, this is how to do this, I've actually created a video for you to do that. And you can get that in my training program, salesondemandshow.com/AZ. Anyway, enough of promoting that. But so I had this lady doing it. She uploaded probably, I don't know, had to be close to 500-600 different listings, and she did a great job. And I eventually just kind of said, okay, well, I think I've got enough designs up for now. Let's see how that works. And I basically said, well, I don't have any more work for you. So I didn't really fire her, but I just stopped giving her work. And it was really easy with Upwork. Basically, you assign the work to be done, and you put the money in escrow, and then when they finish the job, you release the funds, and then they get paid. Really super easy to do, and it's easy to sort of trust the person because they know the money's there, and they know that if they complete the work and you don't pay them, that they can complain to Upwork, and there's a lot of accountability on both sides. So it's very, very easy to trust that someone's going to do the work for you. It's almost unheard of to have somebody rip you off who's a virtual assistant. Probably more likely is that, the people who hire virtual assistants are ripping them off. The virtual assistant will do some work and then not get paid for it. So that's a bit of a risk, I think, for them. But there's still, there's a lot of people who want work, and they're willing to work for less money than you think. Not that I'm saying you should underpay people. The money I'm paying my virtual assistant is more than he'd be making doing anything else. And I'm pretty sure that after a month or two, I'm going to raise his pay even more because I want to make sure that I keep him as a virtual assistant. He's very good, and I don't want to lose him to something else. He is a student, but you just never know. So I'm going to probably raise his pay at the end of probably a month, maybe 2 months, depending on how things go, just so that he'll be working for me for a while. So that is a beginner technique. It's just hire someone to do uploading of simple files for you. There's no research involved. It's just clicking buttons. But it is the kind of button clicking that needs to get done in order to get your products from the digital PNG format to an actual product that people can buy. It's a very important part of running a print-on-demand business, but it is tedious. And it's one of those things that people just, everybody gets really excited when they first get started, and they start, they upload a bunch of products, and then they kind of trickle off. And this did happen to me. I kind of lost my zeal, my fire, and I got lazy and just didn't do as much work as I did when I first started my business. And I've realized that, this part of it this is where the money is made. Posting new products, listing new products, this is where the money is made. And if I'm not doing it, then my business is stagnant. So that is my recommendation for beginners. And of course, you can pay more per action depending on what you want them to do. There's other things that you can get them to do. On Amazon, I have my virtual assistant who is actually adding customization to some of the products. He's creating the listings, he's adding the mockups, and he's creating the customization, which is a more advanced task than just uploading products to Gearbubble or other platforms and then sending them to Etsy and Amazon. So it's a little bit more complex, but I know I picked the right guy because he's doing a good job at it. So now let's talk about the intermediate stage. So this is where you're going to have someone who's like maybe one part-time or full-time virtual assistant, and you're going to have them doing a variety of tasks. And of course, there is a wide variety of things that you can get a virtual assistant to do. You can give them access to basically any online software program that you have access to. You can either give them the password for it, or you can create a special user account. So on Amazon, of course, you don't want to give somebody your password, but you can create a user account for them, and then they can go in and make whatever edits and changes that you approve that they can make. So for my virtual assistant, I gave him the ability to create inventory. So now he can go in and create listings for me and upload pictures and do all kinds of little changes. And I may even have him doing some of my FBA stuff, depending on how much time it ends up taking me to do it. So having a part-time virtual assistant means you kind of have to fill their time, and you got to do a bit more training and more kind of working with them in the beginning to get them up to speed, figure out how much time it's going to take them to get things done, and not give them too much to do, but also not give them too little to do. So I'm paying basically by the hour, and that does, of course, make it a little bit more complex, because now I got to figure out, how to fill this time during the day. So I basically came up with 4 tasks, and I said, okay, do these tasks in priority order, and when you hit 4 hours, just stop working. So the first task, of course, is the beginner task of uploading the designs to Gearbubble, and then upload, from there, pushing them to Amazon and Etsy. So that's an easy one to do, and, it might not take very long, but it'll depend on how many designs I have ready to go. So the second task, of course, is adding some customization and creating mockups, because I really wanted to scale up my customization in 2021. And it's time consuming. It's not very difficult to do, but creating the mockups is probably one of the most time consuming things. And then adding all of that to Amazon really is time consuming. But there is potential for lots of sales on Amazon, so I thought, I want to do this, and I've got this guy here. He knows what to do. I've given him access. Let's get him doing it. So far it's working pretty good. He's added his first product, and he says it wasn't too hard to do. So fantastic. Excellent. Now the next thing I'm getting him to do is something that's a little more interesting and a little bit more difficult, and it's why I spent a little bit more time screening the people who were going to work for me. So I've got him doing some research on Pinterest, and what I have him doing is I've given him a list of keywords, and I said, okay, now go to Pinterest and look for memes and funny phrases that sort of, that are good for this particular topic. So like bodybuilding. Go and find a meme that's funny about bodybuilding, and then I can make some products based on that meme or that phrase. So it's basically finding new ideas to make products for. So he's doing that, and he's done a fantastic job. He's not quite as good at it as I am, and that's because he just, when you do something for 4 years, you get good at it. So basically, I'm assuming that he's going to be about 70% as good at this as I am, and that's good enough for me. It's good enough. 70%, and if I can get him to 80%, perfect. Then we'll really have something going on there. So of course, the last thing I'm going to be getting him to do is to use a program called Mug Samurai to create some designs for me, but I actually haven't got him on that yet. I'm trying to not give him too much to do at one time so that he does not trying to learn new things all at the same time. So that's going to be rolling next week. And that's pretty much it. And it's going to be a part-time job. So moving into an advanced phase of this, once you get somebody who's worked for you and kind of knows what they're doing, and you can give them more responsibility and they understand the job a bit more, that's the point where you can start hiring multiple virtual assistants and kind of bounce their work off of one another. So one strategy is to get somebody who's trainable, knows a little bit about graphic design, and just teach them some really basic graphic design. Maybe you have some templates, product templates that you've listed before, but you just haven't taken the time to go in and create new products with them. Well, you can have a virtual assistant go in and do that, and then it takes all of the design work out of your hands. So basically, one of your virtual assistants will be doing designing, and the other one will take the designs and upload them. Now that'll take quite a bit more training and a little bit more time, because you definitely don't want to, hire 2 or 3 people at the same time if you've never hired anybody before. It's gonna, it'll be a full-time job managing just the people that you hired, and you just don't want to do that. It's not a good idea. So it is an advanced technique to do this, but it is something that other sellers are doing, and it works really, really well for them. One fellow whose name is Bank. I've talked about Bank before. He's from Thailand, and he is just a genius at this program. It's not that he's really good at it. He's just really good at recruiting people to do the work for him, and then he just lets them loose and lets them do the work. And he's built himself almost an empire of sales on all the platforms. Plus, he's also selling a software program that he created called Pod Turbo, which is something I've thought about doing, but we'll see. Maybe later. There's such a thing as getting over your skis. So I don't want to get, so-called over my skis and start doing too many things at once, because that's a recipe for disaster, and I don't need any more disasters in my life, So that's an advanced technique, and that's something that I'm aiming towards. So once I get this fellow rolling here, I will probably look at hiring somebody to start doing some designing for me, and I'll start them off slow. Maybe I'll pay them per design instead of paying them on an hourly basis. I think that might be an easier way to do it. So that'll be the only job that they do. They'll be creating designs and then putting them in the folder, and then the other virtual assistant will make the mock-ups and then add them to the platforms. So this is going to hopefully take most of that off of my hands so that I can focus on creating content, coaching, and doing the other things that I do, like the podcast and the training. And I can, spend more time talking to people online, which is something that I do enjoy a fair bit more than I enjoy sitting in front of my computer clicking a mouse. So that's definitely something I'm hoping for in the next couple of weeks. I've also been talking with the founder and owner of GearBubble.com about doing some coaching for him as well. So things are really moving, but I'm definitely risking taking on too much. And there may come a point, where I've got to give something up. And I know it would be sad to do so, but I'm old enough now and I'm smart enough to know that giving something up doesn't mean that you're losing anything. It just means that you become better at the things that you're doing already. And if you like doing those things, then you'll still enjoy your life. You don't have to do everything. Going out there and doing everything in the world, it's just not possible. So it's just one more reality of being an adult and being a business owner, is that sometimes you just have to say no to things. Or you say maybe, or you say later. So that's where I'm at right now, and I'm excited about the future. It's just everything kind of comes together. And it's hard, it's difficult, but it's worth it. So that's it, folks, and I appreciate your listenership. Now, if you like this podcast and you're subscribed on Apple iTunes, go ahead and leave a review. I don't think I have any reviews on iTunes, even though I know I have about 250 subscribers. So I'd love for somebody to go and be the very first person to review my podcast, because it does give me a little bit of a boost in traffic. And of course, it's easy to do, and it doesn't cost you anything except for a few seconds. So if you feel like this podcast has helped you at all, go ahead and do that for me. All right, we'll see you next week for an interview with Travis Ross. I'm actually really looking forward to this. I'm going to be hanging on every word he says because he's very successful. And of course, I hope you guys will be as well. So we'll see you next week. Cheers.